2.5 years ago, Chris's bladder failed and he was in and out of hospital and respites until he finally had a catheter inserted. Chris felt that sick afterwards that he said to his mum, "I can't do this anymore." With the funding package he had before going to hospital, Chris had been able to live by himself, independently. He had an individual support package that gave him 36 hours a week of support, but Chris knew he would need more than that to return home. Chris was living in a housing commission unit in Launceston, not far from the city. He enjoyed being social and part of the community. Chris is on the board of Citizens Advocacy and also on an advisory committee to the Minister for Human Services. Living in Launceston, Chris was an hour away from family. He really wanted to be on the northwest coast, closer to his parents. Chris's dad had recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, so his mum was caring for him now. Chris knew with no choices, this would mean moving into a nursing home. Before this happened, Chris's advocates worked hard to make sure that once he became independent again, the young people in residential aged care funding would be converted back to his individual support package. His advocates had to rely on having a good relationship with the DHS and state government and liaised with them about Chris's best interests. A vacancy became available near his parents, and although it wasn't his first choice of nursing home, Chris had to move there. Chris had a number of problems in the nursing home. It was on a big hill, so it was hard for Chris to get around. And as Chris says, the evening meal wasn't enough to keep a bird alive. Chris had no choice but to have dinner at 5 p.m. He hated having dinner that early. How could a young person have a job and be home by 5 p.m? Also, the internet was slow. Chris had people with dementia coming into his room. There was no privacy. When Chris's old wheelchair stopped working, he was out of action for 3 months. For someone with his social activities, it was hell. He had to fundraise for a new one because he wasn't eligible for the community equipment scheme whilst in the nursing home. Chris spent 2 years on the waiting list for alternative housing in Launceston. Advocates would email on his behalf, constantly asking how this was progressing. A unit came up, but they had to make sure the individual support package was back and set in concrete. It took more than 6 weeks to get this in place. They had to do an accessibility check on the unit, the council did some modifications, and the disability advisory team fine-tuned it. The bathroom has been modified, and modifications made to the front door too to make it remote control. Chris moved in January 2018. Chris's social life has improved immensely. He gets 40 hours support a week and he sees his mum and dad daily as they are just around the corner. This is a good interim solution.
Independent.